Hello everyone, thank you for coming. Really appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on your Saturday. It's actually a nice day out there. There's a lot more things you'd rather be doing than sitting in here, and I really want to thank these legislators for coming. Yes. You know, they spent all week in Boise, and they come over here and have just a day, maybe at best, day and a half at best, to be here, take care of business that they have to, be with their families, and then turn around and head back to Boise. So I really do appreciate them coming. We did invite pretty much every legislator in Bonneville County and whatnot, but again, you know, it's really hard to come. Some of them couldn't even come back from Boise. So I really want to, before we get started, a big hand for these three for coming. I really appreciate it. Okay, Greg, we're going to start with a prayer and a pledge here.
Dear God, we ask you to help our country get back to its roots of the Constitution and our framers that very much believed in Jesus Christ and what he did for us. And we ask you to bless this nation and bless our representatives and legislation, that they would always keep you in mind and do things that is pleasing to you. And God, we ask you also to look after our nation and look after what's going on in Ukraine right now, that God, that you'd have your hand on those people, and hopefully that a war will be prevented. And God, we thank you for so much that you've given to us in our country, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so in the, savings time and whatnot, I'm just going to get things started here. Just real quickly, I'm going to start with Carrie. Have you quickly just introduce yourselves, and then I'd like to go to Wendy to start things off. And what we're going to do is let each one of them mention a couple of their key items that they're thinking about, that they think's an issue. We'll take some questions and answers and whatnot, but we want to obviously go through and talk to each of them. Time is short. Wendy does have to leave early and all that, so we're going to work on that aspect. So anyway, we'll start here with Carrie, and let you introduce yourself and where you're from.
Do you want us to stand, or do you care?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't care.
So I'm Carrie Hanks. I represent Fremont, Jefferson, Clark, and Butte counties right now. And with our redistricting, I will be switching out Butte for Lemhi County, which is the salmon area. So it'll be a little bit further to drive, but I'm just so thankful to serve our people and in our district. And I love Idaho, and I love our country, and I love the principles upon which, as he prayed, that our country is based. And we do have a lot of challenges just in Idaho itself. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today, and we do. We need your help. We need your neighbors and friends' help. So we'll kind of lay out some of the things that we're dealing with. So thank you.
I'm going to just sit. My name is Wendy Horman. I represent Bonneville County District 30. This is my 10th session, and prior to being elected to the legislature, I served 11 years on the Bonneville County School Board. I currently serve on the Joint Finance and Appropriation Committee with Representative Nate, and we comprise the conservative back row of JFAC. I also serve on House Commerce and Human Resource Committee and the House Energy, Environment, and Technology Committee. Idaho National Laboratories headquarters are in my legislative district, so that's an important committee for me to serve on as well.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Doug, for putting this on. It's good to come back home on the weekends and talk to the real people instead of the Ada County, which is It's another world sometimes. My name's Ron Nate. I'm a representative from District 34, which includes Madison County and the north part of Bonneville County, which is Yukon, Iona, and that area. With the redistricting, I'll lose the Bonneville part of that, and it'll only be Madison County. I serve on JFAC with Representative Horman, and I also serve on the Local Government Committee and also on the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee. The JFAC committee is very interesting this year because Idaho has generated, through the hard work of its families and taxpayers, a budget surplus of $1.9 billion, which in context, our state budget last year was about $4.1 billion. So 1.9 is about a 40% surplus over and above what we thought we needed to spend last year. So my first instinct, let's return that money to the taxpayers who earned it, and then find ways to make government even more lean and more efficient. But there's lots to talk about with those things. But anyway, that's my introduction. Thanks for coming today, folks.
Okay, we'll get started. Just so that everybody can hear, I'll let Wendy get started. Does that work? I think so. And then if you have a question, we'll have her say some things. But if you have a question, please raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you so that everybody can hear, okay? Appreciate that. And Wendy?
Thank you. And thank you for letting me go at the beginning. I've still got to get my tires rotated, and I'm playing the organ for church tomorrow, so I've got to rehearse with pianists that we're doing a piano organ duet of America the Beautiful. So thank you for letting me have a few minutes here at the top. The biggest thing I've worked on so far this session is the Empowering Parents grants for students. It's a reincarnation of my Strong Students bill from last year that we failed by one vote in the Senate to get. It's what it is a mini grant to low-income students who can use them for educational expenses. Everything from computers and internet connectivity to tutoring, to equestrian lessons, to cello lessons, to mathnasium, and any sort of educational supplementary services. We did have private school tuition in it last year, and that's why it died. So it was a $30 million bill last year. This year, it is a $50 million bill using one-time American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA. So we had to pull private school tuition out, but it is still available to public and non-public school students to use if you're a private school student and you have to purchase textbooks or a Chromebook or uniforms or any of those sorts of things. You can still use the funds for those expenses, as well as public school students. We know that low-income students are those who struggle the most in our public schools if you do an analysis of the data. And so I don't really care if a child is even in a system. What I care about is if they're an Idaho child, they deserve our support. And so it is available to homeschool students as well. That was the only opposition in committee, was from the Homeschool Association. They don't want homeschoolers to be able to access these funds. However, based on the number of homeschool students who applied for and received Governor Brad Little's Strong Families, Strong Students program during 2020, right at the fall of the pandemic. That was $50 million also that went out to low-income families to help with education expenses. There were almost 5,000 homeschool students who took advantage of that. The bill clearly states that no regulation of homeschool students is contained in the bill. I wouldn't be sponsoring a bill that contained anything. Idaho is one of the most free homeschool states in the nation. People move here for that kind of freedom, and I would never sponsor a bill that changed that. So that came out of the Senate Thursday. Senator Lori Den Hartog is the the Senate co-sponsor, and that came out of the Senate on a very strong vote, 34-1. And I talked to Representative Clow Friday to see if I could get it on the agenda this week. He declined, but I hope to get it on, I still hope to get it on this week, but if I can't get it on the agenda this week, hopefully next week. I'm happy to let others take a turn. I can stay till 2, so do you all want to take a turn? And
Well, I would, right now, just so that we do, if there's anybody has questions, do we have any questions on the bills that she was talking about right now, or anybody want to make a comment?
It's Senate Bill 1255. I did mention the number.
Oh, okay.
As a citizen of Idaho, whose preference to reduce our dependence on federal dollars with what I believe to be nooses attached, I am saddened to hear that your legislation is based on use of those very funds. How would you address that concern?
Idaho has these funds, and we can either keep them to benefit our citizens, or we can send them back to the federal government for them to redistribute to other states. So my preference is to give those funds to Idaho children. Now, there are some of the uses of the federal funds that I will not be supporting, but this is not one of those.
So my question is, okay, you've got the funds now, but when those funds are gone, then all those people that have been relying on them for everything, where are you going to get the money to keep all those things going?
Great question, thank you. In working with the governor's office and other supporters of this bill, we were able to take the Arpa funds, $50 million, and those will be the funds that go out to students and families in Idaho. What we were able to negotiate in was the funds to develop the digital platform that will deliver the funds. So it's kind of like an Amazon thing. You'll be able to go on and click on the things that you want to purchase and use the funds for, and staffer to staff that, as well as an evaluation of the program. I'm confident that this program will show positive academic benefits for those who use it. And so we funded an evaluation. So there's $1.185 million of ongoing state general funds. So setting the stage for, so when that federal funding runs out, we hope to be able to use state general funds in the future. Of course, that will be a decision of a future legislature, but if I'm there, that's certainly what I'll be advocating for.
It's quite a reduction from the pure state, right?
I'm sorry?
You said there was 50 million, and how much going? You said there was 50 million you were working on now, is that what you said?
Correct. She asked how much, and it's 50 million going out to families, 1.185 million of state general funds to create the platform that hopefully in the future we can
But that's
use.
quite a reduction, so there would be a reduction in services at that point, then, right?
The 1.185 million is strictly for operating costs. Those will not be distributed to students. That's going to be the cost of operating the platform.
Okay, but what I'm trying to understand is this was a one-time thing from the federal government you're working on. Okay, that disappears, say in 2-3 years. What are you going to have to keep it going?
It will be up to a future legislature to put
Okay.
funds in the Empowering Parents Fund
Okay,
bucket,
so
which
it
this
virtually
creates.
just disappeared.
Yeah, this legislation creates a fund that in the future other funds could be go into, and private donations are accepted into the fund.
I pay taxes already. I said I pay taxes already.
I think in the bill, it specifies a parent advisory panel
Yes,
that's going to help administer it and whatever.
yes.
But it seems it's a little bit vague on who these parents are, how they're selected, who's overseeing them, that kind of governance issue.
The language says eligible parents. We hope that it will be parents of students who actually have utilized the grants. The income thresholds are 60,000 first. Under 60,000 get first crack at it. Last year the bill was 50,000, but we're blaming Biden inflation and increasing that to 60,000 for this year. So students of parents who make under 60,000 get first shot at the money. Second round will be those who make under 75,000, and the last round will be those who make over 75,000. In the Strong Families, Strong Students, the money was gone at the lower income levels before it got to opening it up to anyone. And so the language reads eligible parents, and so you have to be a parent of a student who's eligible to apply for the program. So our hope is that it will be parents who've participated, who know what they've had to purchase for their kids to make up the difference of whatever system, public, private, or home, is being supplemented.
First of all, thank you folks for coming out here. And this is going to be way out of the box question, but when we started this session today, we started it with prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. So what would it take to get that back into our schools?
Besides the Supreme Court case?
Well, it's interesting that prayer and religion have been taken out of public schools, but what has replaced it? I'm finding out that there's all sorts of horrible things being done in our schools that we never would have thought of happening 10, 20, 30 years ago. In fact, yesterday I sent this to Representative Horman. I found out there was a section in Idaho code that says that it is prohibited for people to distribute harmful materials to minors. And there's a few exceptions in there, unless the parent is approving, unless there's an adult who is a guardian of the student. But then there's an exception there that says, except it's
18.
Code 18-1517, and unless those distributing it are from a school, a university, a library, or a museum. We're like, they can distribute harmful materials to students? Well, I didn't anticipate anything like that this legislative session, but I immediately drafted a bill. We're looking to get it heard in committee next week and just get that section out of code that says, if they're harmful materials, why should a school be able to distribute it all? They have our kids for 6 hours every day. And in fact, let's go the other way. Let's distribute virtuous materials to our students. Virtuous, lovely, praiseworthy stuff ought to be what happens, if we're going to distribute anything to students in schools. And so, what would put religion back in schools? My answer is 2 words: school choice. Let parents be the controller of their kids' education. Let's fund students, not systems. And our system is broken. We have good teachers. We have good people involved in education, but the system is broken. And what returns it to excellence is letting parents make the decisions. Competition drives good results. I mean, thanks, Dave. And so, Representative Horman's bill is a start, but I think we need to trend towards full school choice, where every student has the amount of money that we're spending on students for schools, and they get to choose to spend that in public schools. They could go to public schools and have that money follow them, or they go to a private school or homeschool or whatever choice they want to make. And if they want to do homeschool, we can separate them out from the regulations too, and also say that, homeschoolers have the option to opt out of the whole program altogether. So everyone's freedom can be protected and still let people choose. And I think if you look at our society, and the places where you're most dissatisfied in society are those things that are probably dominated by government. Think about the places where you're most dissatisfied as a customer. The post office, no offense to postal workers, DMV, wherever. But think about the places where you're most satisfied. Getting great delivery from Federal Express. Think of all the food choices you have this evening. You get to choose what kind of food to have wherever you go. You have multitude of choices. Competition in the food industry gives you such great freedom. Why can't we have competition in education? I can't imagine what kind of innovations and excellence we're missing out on because there's no competition in education. Did you know that bowling alleys stopped using overhead projectors about 30 years before schools stopped using them? But because they're in a competitive industry and entertainment's important, they found a better way to do something like that, a better way to keep score, a better way to advertise, better way to do something. Schools stuck in that old archaic system for another 30 years. I can't imagine the innovations that would come if we freed up the funds, let the students and the parents choose, and had schools compete for the excellence in education that they could provide. Thanks.
Excellent.
Can I just,
That one seems to be doing better.
okay,
It's a great microphone.
excellent.
That ain't working.
Can you turn that one off?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Unplug it. There we go.
Better.
Test.
It's like you're in the spot.
You're just magnetic.
I'll hold it out here. Agree with what Representative Nate said as far as school choice. I've always been a school choice supporter. My children have attended everything from public schools to private schools to online schools to charter schools, and I homeschooled 2 of them twice. So I'm a huge fan of school choice. And there is, Representative Moon has a bill coming that will be more expansive. My concern is she's going to run into the same, you hold it. She's going to run into the same barrier
Here, try this one.
that I ran into last year. And that's Senate Education Committee. But nonetheless, I hope we can get that bill out of House Education Committee, off the House floor, and at least over to the Senate for a vote. But it will be a challenge. The concern I have about defining homeschoolers in Idaho code is it will be the first time Idaho has defined a homeschooler. And I'm not a fan of that. I want it to remain as it is now, with complete freedom, no regulation, and no definition in Idaho code. And so that's the concern I have with separating out homeschoolers, is it's the start of regulation, and I'm not okay with that. So the other big bill, I just got the draft of Friday, is overhauling the K-12 funding formula, which it was 2 envelopes. It was about that high because it's 28 years old now, ridiculously complex. Money doesn't even follow the student inside the system, let alone outside the system. And so that's something I've been working on since 2015. But there's just a strong resistance to that kind of change where you're having a funding formula based on students instead of other inputs in the system. Idaho is one of only 6 states left in the nation, and actually Tennessee just passed their overhaul. I'm not sure if it's a student-based system, where it's called a resource allocation, where at the state level, the state decides, okay, we're going to give you this many teachers for this many students based on the size of your school and how many teachers you hire and what their education levels are. That's an archaic way to fund schools, and it's way past its prime. It was an improvement in 1994 when it passed, but those days are behind us. And so that's the other significant way I am working this session, to get money to follow the student instead of money to fund the system, if you will.
Can I just point out one other thing? In the past, getting school choice has been difficult to near impossible in Idaho and other states because of the separation of church and state, so-called provision. But Supreme Court decisions, although I hate relying on Supreme Court decisions, but this was a good one in this case. Espinoza versus Montana Schools made it so we can have the money follow the student to whatever school they think is best, even a religious-based school. So the answer to prayers and religion in school is full school choice allows parents to choose the most virtuous education for their kids as well.
Maybe I'll try this now here.
Thank all three of you representatives for taking your time out. I'm a 38-year employee at the Idaho National Laboratory. Just retired in November, forced retirement, based off the vaccine mandate. A gentleman, and I have to give him credit, have spent months on putting a document together for active immunity and for the state to recognize active immunity opposed to being forced to take a vaccine. And there were well over several hundred individuals that were denied the vaccine that have lost their job, okay? I am very disappointed in our representatives. When I look at Florida and Texas, it just feels like Idaho is so far behind in promoting their conservative values that I often what's going on in our capital in Boise. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to leave you, I've got 3 hard copies. This is over 100 pages, represents months of work. Very unbiased, with well over 100 studies from MIT, Harvard, universities, both international and domestic, that talk about how much more robust active immunity is than what you get from a vaccine. And I'm going to leave a copy for you. I've already given it to the individual there on your right electronically. And electronically, and the website too, we formed a coalition for natural immunity. And if you get to that website, every single study is hot linked and takes you right to it. It's unbiased, and we're looking for legislation for Idaho to recognize natural immunity opposed to being forced to take the vaccine. And this is, I can't understate how much this has ruined people's lives, livelihood, families, and tax base based off them losing their jobs. I know a couple from Washington that left the Hanford site because they were against the vaccine and moved here, and 3 months later were forced to take the vaccine, which they denied, and had to pay all the moving costs back to the INL, and they didn't have a dime. This is going on right in our back door, and I want to know where our legislations are, our representatives are, in trying to solve this problem for hundreds of people that have lost their jobs, and hundreds of people that have had their religious exemptions denied, to include medical exemptions denied. And I'm really interested for each representative here, all 3 of you, to give us what you've done or what you're going to do to help solve this problem.
Excellent.
Well, I'll start because I had 1 bill drafted for the November session, 1 bill, and it was to recognize natural immunity. That's the only bill I had drafted for the November session. Representative DeMordaunt had another bill drafted that was, I can't remember. I'm actually trying to find the number of it here, and maybe while one of these guys is talking, I can give you the number. That bill has been drafted. It was not given a hearing in the Senate. It came out of the House. So I took my bill, because we already had too many bills in the November session, and I added it to Representative DeMordaunt's bill. I will get you that number while they're talking. There is a group working. I am not a member of that group because I'm doing finance and education, but I understand that Representative Nate is. I don't know if you are. Do you want to? I'll find the bill number for you while we're sitting here.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing out what some of us are beyond frustrated in the House. There are several bills. We had several bills in November. People were begging us to get into session and to get these mandates pushed back. We couldn't get anything through. It's not just the Senate problem, but there is a big challenge there because legislation will pass the House, sometimes with a veto-proof majority, and then they will not even give it a hearing. That's what happened last year. I was going to talk a little bit later about my mask mandate prohibition bill. And the reason I feel so strongly about prohibiting masks among our citizens is because that was the first step. So we didn't push back hard enough on the masks, and so then we have the vaccines. And we have had several proposals, and even right now, there are several proposals that we have in the works, but we can't get a committee chair to hear the bill. I think Representative Nate's going to talk more about the grocery tax repeal that we have tried to bring to the floor.
Is committee chair Becky?
No, he is the Speaker of the House, and some of us believe that he basically controls what the chairman will allow
What's the
into.
name of the chairman?
This one is health. A lot of them are through health and welfare, which is Fred Wood. He's retiring, so there's not really any motivation for him. He's a retired doctor, and I think doctors are great, but in this instance, he is seems to be pretty much against anything to do with natural immunity and stuff. I'm not in that committee anymore. I was in that my first 2 years, and I would just describe him as pretty liberal, progressive, as far as where he stood on things. We have so many bills, and that's why they're meeting in a committee, is to try to coalesce and get the strongest parts that we need to get done for natural immunity. And it's unbelievable to me, almost, that in this state where we were supposed to be so red and so free and so conservative, we're way behind the curve on getting things opened up. And it has to do with leadership. So I'll let Representative Nate go from there. Thanks.
Thank you. One of the biggest frustrations with the legislature is the process. I mentioned school systems being broken. The legislative process is broken too. It's not serving the people very well right now. I'll tell you, last November when we had that little mini session of 3 days there to come back and finally adjourn, we proposed 29 bills on this single issue of medical freedom and privacy. About half of them were held in the House Health and Welfare Committee. 7 of them, about the other half went over to the Senate. 7 of them were brought up in committee. None of them actually went to the full Senate for a vote. The Senate didn't do anything on any of the bills sent to them. This session, we came in with one of the priorities, our Idaho conservative agenda, you can find out there on the table, signed on to by 31 legislators, and up here in the top of it is restore freedom, ensure election integrity, and then the second one is medical freedom and privacy. There's been a group of legislators meeting together weekly, all working on the same issue of collaborating to ensure your medical freedom and privacy. They've coalesced it down to 5 bills to achieve that. One is about exemptions, one's about non-discrimination of workers based on their vaccination status or anything else medically. Another one is about having no mandates at all over vaccinations or masks. Another one is about if you're going to mandate something, you're going to be liable for any harm or injury that happens to those you're mandating it on. And another one is a simple privacy thing, that no matter if there's a mandate or not, if you can't ask your employees whether they've been vaccinated or not, it totally disenfranchises that mandate, right? The mandate means nothing if they can't enforce it. So all those are ideas being worked on by this collaborative. And it all goes back to the point, if there's risk, you cannot force it. Whether it's approved or not, if there's a potential risk for a vaccine, you cannot have government force it. That takes us completely away from the American ideals of freedom and individual choice. This week there was a development with that collaborative. We've got all the bills developed. got Senate sponsors for them, and then said, you know what, let's work in good faith, took them to leadership and said, here's the bills we want to work on. We have Senate sponsors, we have the committees that we want to bring them to. The leadership came back the next day and said, oh, we're not going to work with you on this. But I guarantee you, the leadership is going to come out with a bill or two. Yes, news to you. Yeah, and so, but this collaborative is not done. They are going to continue on with this and say, you know, we have our 5 bills. They already have some of the bills scheduled for hearings in the committees. But one frustrating part about this is we have 105 legislators. Each of the legislators is assigned to 2 or 3 committees each, and they are supposed to represent the views of their constituencies and vote on legislation. If the committee process is broken that you can't even bring a bill to be voted on, we need to change that process or change the people out who are defending that process, because it's a broken process. Elections matter. Sending people over there who understand that things should be voted on instead of put in a drawer, or instead of meeting the special interests of big pharma or big medical or whoever is stopping these good bills from going through, we need to have good people. Did you know that Doug Toomer here is running for office? I think he would be one who defends the people instead of a broken process. And so, I'm telling you, we are doing what we can. We are 3 voices out of 105. Good news is there's more of us over there that believe in this and need to get it done. And I think we can get it done. The people's voice matters a lot. Let your legislators know. Hammer Health and Welfare Committee and Chairman Fred Wood on this. He needs to know that the people want these protections, because you shouldn't have to reveal your medical information or take a risky drug to keep your job, keep your livelihood. Thanks.
Just following up with the 2 bill numbers that, so the bill that I sponsored that had natural immunity was House Bill 415 from the 2021 session. You can go back and find that language. I have it here, but I won't take time to read it. I'm noticing that my name got left off the sponsorship of that. So you won't find my name on it, but it's my bill. The Section C is my bill. Funny how that works.
Yeah, it is.
The other bill that I worked on was House Bill 425 with Representative Bruce Skog. That was the Montana model that was working brilliantly during the pandemic, stopping businesses from mandating. So I'm thrilled to hear this news. I had my first bill put in a drawer this week. Guess what it is? It's a bill to establish parent councils at every school in Idaho. They can look at curriculum, they can look at academic performance, they can look at school safety plans, they can make recommendations to the principal, the administration, and the school board. And I couldn't get a hearing in the House, so I'm working now with the Senate Education Chairman to see if he'll give me a hearing.
I'll just ask this loud. If you please, you know, I'm sorry, Doug. You can keep walking. I can talk fast.
This is kind of, yeah, I can talk fast. I just want to know if you could help me find out the list of the legislators who have signed on to the Idaho Conservative Caucus. I just can't find that. Help me find
All
it.
3 of us have. He's
Well,
the leader.
I gathered, yeah. We want the whole list, because we want the ones that are not here today. We want to find out about them.
Yeah, I can get you the list. I don't have it in front of me, but I can get it.
Is it online someplace?
Yes, if you go onto my Facebook, you can go back and look at I think January 10th or 11th. I did a Facebook post, and in the comments it's there because somebody asked for it there. But
Oh,
yep.
okay. January 10th or 11th?
Yeah, when did our session start?
The 11th.
It was the 11th, January 11th.
So we know that it's
Monday,
a
whatever
real
day that
problem
Monday was.
with the bills being
Totally was
held
the
in
10th.
the drawers. Would it be appropriate, and can we bring a bill that says once that bill is submitted, it has to be heard within so many days so that they don't just get buried? Can we do
It'll
that?
get put in a drawer.
You know, that bill would get put in a drawer, ironically. But here's the thing: is that we get to choose our rules for the House. But the House rules are not always set up to protect the people. Sometimes they protect the power. And right now we have 15 committees in the House. There's a chair and a vice chair on each committee, so that's 30 people on committee leadership, plus 4 leadership of the House. They like that power, so there's 34 votes there that would shut down anything like that to free up the chairman's drawers, because they like having the chairman's drawers under control. So it is almost impossible to change those rules. But what can change the process is the people saying, look, we have this important bill that's being shut down. I'll talk about grocery tax repeal in a minute. But there's other procedures we can use, but the procedures fall flat unless there's a lot of voice out there from the people. And this week, we tried those procedures 2 or 3 different ways on grocery tax repeal. The good news is, the voice of the people is now rising up. I think that keeping this bill in the drawers backfired on them, because people are saying, look, we don't want these breadcrumbs of little credits on our income tax, $20 in 2 years. Can you believe they proposed that as a tax relief? $20 in 2 years? Good grief. We have a $1.9 billion surplus, and grocery tax repeal would be instant, immediate tax relief for Idaho families, totaling about $300 million this year alone and every year on into the future, when we have Biden inflation hitting you twice. You're paying higher prices and you're paying more in taxes because of the higher prices. You know who benefits? The government. They're getting tons of dollars that they didn't even anticipate, and now we have people lined up in JFAC from agencies with their Christmas lists of all sorts of spending that they want to do. They want to spend it up. They don't want to return it. They want helicopters. Department of Lands wants 5 drones with 2 pilots and a truck to drive them around. Is that what we need to be spending the extra money on? No, grocery tax repeal. Let's work on that. Tell your representatives, tell leadership of the House and Senate that they better work for the people and not for the big interests anymore.
I've got a guy right behind here first. I have 2 things that really quick. Number 1, I want to thank all the representatives who unanimously supported the House resolution this week for the Idaho Falls Bandits. Yay! Grandson was on the 2019.
That's great.
Nice. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Second thing, House Bill 499. I believe Representative Ron Nate has been in that committee, a Judiciary Committee, handling that. It's coming to the floor, I believe, this next week, and I would ask and urge all of you to support the bill, which what it does in a legal term, it amends the Idaho Code 59-1303 to add emergency communication officers, who we lovingly refer to as dispatchers, into police officer membership status for the Idaho State Police, county law enforcement, city law enforcement, which puts them under the rule of 80 for Percy rather than the rule of 90 for Percy, which means their age plus their years of service for their retirement. Their stress level, their job commitment, nothing happens in the field without that dispatcher making it happen. And so I would just urge and ask maybe Representative Nate if there's any elaboration of what he thinks on the bill. I know he's the Idaho Police Association, the Idaho Sheriff's Association, the Chief of Police Association in Idaho, Idaho Retired Law Enforcement Association are all backing this, but it doesn't sound like it's really, might not make it through. So I just wanted to ask you about that.
Thank you. We have had this come up a few other times, and I'll tell you what my why I had concerns about in the past, but I have actually spoken with the sheriffs in my district. I've talked with an ISP officer and with other law enforcement. So with the rule of 80, I don't know if you can agree, but I feel that our police officers, our sheriff office, others, they really don't get paid what they deserve. I have ridden with an ISP officer, and I can't believe what they do, walking up to these cars, and you see things on Facebook about what happens sometimes, and I just think, I mean, I pray for them because they have a tough job. And what I have expressed to some of our law enforcement is that you know, we don't want to take away from what you do in serving us and of, you know, keeping the peace here with adding more to that rule of 80, because it's kind of a special part of the Percy plan. Well, the officers that I have talked to said, you know, they are our first line. They are the first people. We have to depend on them. We need good emergency communications officers. And so they truly believe in order to keep good people in there that they need this. I do not like to add people to things like this, and I have really gone back and forth on it, but I have chosen to support that, and I've let our law enforcement know that I'm going to support that. We also have the juvenile officers that they want to add to that. You know, it's so hard because we appreciate what all these people do, and that they do have some risks, not daily like our law enforcement do, but they do have risks, and they get hurt and beat on and stuff like that. I served out at the Juvenile Correction Center as an intern, and I saw what occurs with some of those juveniles, and they can be pretty dangerous from time to time. So this is what another concern is when do we stop doing the rule of 80? That, you know, there will be others that will say, we have PTSD, we need to be added. And so it's really difficult because I want to protect that fund for our police officers and sheriff and all that, and our also firefighters. So that's the quandary that we have had in determining, and I haven't talked to a lot of people. I don't know what some of the other legislators think, but I've come to the point where I'm going to support that. So thank you.
In answering your question, they don't do it for the money like teachers.
Yeah.
It ain't a dollar thing, it's a,
Yeah,
that's what they do, and they like it.
I know. I don't think all the teachers do it for the money.
Well,
I don't think all the teachers do it for the money
I don't think any of them.
because I think that's a hard job. But a lot of us have difficult jobs. I mean, some people say, how can you be a legislator? Because I can't imagine doing that. And it's like, well, in my case, I feel that God, our Heavenly Father, has helped me with this. Because I'm a farm girl. I have 7 kids, 17 grandkids, and that was my life, and I loved it. I drive bus for Fremont County and school bus, and you know, my life was going pretty good. I work on the farm and stuff, and in my case, I feel like God has led me to do this, and it can be really difficult, but when He calls, He strengthens and helps us to do that. So whatever you feel called to do in helping in your community, helping us, you know, helping Doug with this great organization that he's spearheading. There are so many ways that we need help. So please be open to what God is asking you to do. So thank you.
Okay, I want to interrupt. We actually have about 3 minutes for Representative Horman before she has to leave. Okay, and so I'd like to just ask quick, does anybody have a specific question for her before she has to leave? So just ask that real quick. Anybody you have one for her?
My question is to Representative Horman and Representative Hanks and Representative Nate. Ben Adams introduced a bill, Defend the Guard Act. And I believe this bill has been introduced in many other states, I think about 30 states. In essence, it says if Congress does not officially declare war, that no more Idahoans will go into any more unconstitutional, undeclared wars. The federal military is so out of control. I've read that they are spending about $775 billion, and the war in Afghanistan that lasted 20 years is over with. So my question to you is, are you supporting Ben Adams' Defend the Guard Act, and what are you doing to try to get this into law?
So speaking of bills that have been put in drawers,
No.
not kidding.
Yeah.
No, not kidding.
Yeah.
Last year as well.
Last year it got killed in a vote
right.
in transportation and defense in kind of a mess. This year, he knew that same thing was going to happen again, so he introduced it, rather than going through the committee process, through the personal bill process. And 99.99% of the time, in fact, I don't know of a personal bill that's ever gotten a hearing in my 10 years.
He tried to go to the committee chair would not hear it. I understand he took it to the committee chair, and the committee chair would not hear it, so his only last resort is personal bill.
Yeah, so you can, I was trying to see if I could quickly find the number, I can't find it, but you can go to the, is it 494?
No, that's not it.
Okay, well, you can go to the military personnel, military expenses, youth challenge, I don't see it. You can go to the legislative website and find that bill, but I think you'll see that it's living in the Ways and Means Committee right now and unlikely to get a hearing. But yeah, I spent quite a bit of time talking with Ben about that bill and his beliefs. He's helped educate me, frankly. None of us can be experts on every subject. You can ask me almost any question about the public school funding formula, and I could probably give you a good answer. Or about revenues, 462. Representative found it. It's House Bill 462. Revenues, finances, school safety, transparency, government transparency. I ran the bill to add fiscal notes to ballot initiatives, so I'm really into government transparency type bills. Actually, that's another bill I'm hoping to introduce this week is a supplemental levy bill. If the schools run a supplemental levy right now, they don't have to say how they're going to use it on the ballot. But if the state's going to pay for health insurance, if the state's going to pay for kindergarten at some level, I don't know how that's all kind of falling apart. I don't know what that's going to look like now. But if the state's paying for it, it had not to be paying for it at the local level too. So that's another government transparency bill I have coming, I hope this next week, that will force a district to just disclose what they're spending the bill on and how much they're going to spend it on, and they have to spend it on that. They can't actually change it. They can have a 10% fluctuation, but they'll have to have a new budget hearing if they want to change it and have the public approve that. So thank you for your time. Wendy Horman at house.idaho.gov is my email. It's unique. Wendy Horman, unique in the sense that it's not just my first initial. It's Wendy Horman at house.idaho.gov if you want to get a hold of me. Thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you. We just sort of talk on and try to get Wendy out of here and whatnot.
Wendy, just before you leave, you just lost, in this session, you lost speaker by only one vote, I think, is what I remember. What are plans for a new speaker? Because we hope the one that we have now is gone.
He will be gone.
And what power does a speaker have over these committee people that put things in the drawer? I mean, can you change that, or is it a house rule? What do we do with a new speaker that can change some of these crazy laws that allows these people to have that power to throw them in the drawer when we need them heard?
Thank you for the question. I did run for speaker because I thought it was time for a culture change in the House. And one of those big changes was communications and also bills. That would never be something I would do as speaker, is tell the committee chair they can hold a bill. Now sometimes there are technical flaws in bills and they shouldn't go forward because they're flawed. It's been written incorrectly, it's got a bad number in it, something like that, technical problems, but otherwise I am also for open debate. So there are a number of us whose names are out there still considering a run for speaker. I am one of those. There's going to be significant turnover in the House next year. Huge. I came in 2012 with a class of 30, and I think there's going to be at least that many coming in this year. So I'll let Representative Nate and Hanks take over here if they want to talk on the leadership races. But I think there's a lot of people ready for some change in the House. So, thank you.
All right, let's just take a couple minutes out. We get back to Representative Hanks and Nate, okay? What do you got?
Ma'am.
Could you please explain when you say a personal bill? What's
Yes.
the first some? Okay, you want it official?
Could you please explain when you say a personal bill versus whatever the other kind of bills are, so we have understanding, please?
Absolutely, thank you.
Great question.
The House rules and Mason's Rules of Order talk about how bills are to be introduced into the legislature. Rule 6 in our House rules say that bills are introduced through committees. So you take the bill to the committee chair schedules an introduction hearing, the committee votes on whether to introduce it, and then it gets a bill number, and then it's scheduled for a full hearing in committee. Unfortunately, the way our process works is sometimes you take your idea for a bill to the committee chair and he says, no, we're not even going to schedule an introduction hearing. And so that stops a bill from even getting introduced to the legislature because it never gets introduced into the committee and printed with a bill number. Our rules also have a provision that up to the 20th day of the legislative session, if you want to introduce a bill without that committee process, you can introduce it as a personal bill. Leadership does not like personal bills. Therefore, this leadership in particular, previous leaderships have sent personal bills to their germane committees where they could then be scheduled for a hearing potentially. But our group of leadership right now, any personal bill that's submitted gets sent to the House Ways and Means Committee. And the House Ways and Means Committee is composed of the leadership of the House, including the minority leadership and the majority leadership. Therefore, they control that. And the culture is, from the current leadership, is that House Ways and Means does not schedule hearings for personal bills. So it is the morgue for personal bills. It's where good bills go to die because, one, they weren't allowed for a hearing in the original committee, and number two, because they were submitted as personal bills, the leadership doesn't want to have them heard at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, but sometimes you'll submit it as a personal bill to give it a chance, and that's what I do. Every bill that I propose is an earnest attempt to change Idaho law, and if the committee chair won't hear it, I'm going to submit it as a personal bill so that people can see it and so that I can keep pushing on leadership to try and get it heard no matter what.
So at least the people know it's going on.
Yep.
So I just wanted to add a little bit to that. They made the statement on the floor this week. There have been some videos about what has occurred this week as we have tried various means to pull up the grocery tax repeal. And it isn't just about the grocery tax repeal, but it is a glaring example of how we are attempting within the bigger process to move these bills out for discussion, for debate on the floor. But they will not allow them, and you can see who voted for and against this smaller process. The process is that we can bring bills forward as personal bills. Another reason that we do personal bills is to, I guess he kind of said that, is to get a number so that people can contact their representatives and their senators and say, we want this bill number, H445, whatever, heard. And so it kind of gives people something to know what the bill number is instead of just saying a bill about vaccine mandates. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But we should be able to present these concepts, these proposals that our constituents are asking for, pleading for us to do. And I think Ron needs to talk more about what occurred this week as far as the process that we attempted in getting grocery tax repeal to the floor. Now we have one more thing. We've heard that, well, they're going to add the words or something like that. I'm not afraid to vote on add the words legislation. And there's no bills that I'm really afraid to express my opinion on, but that's kind of one of the excuses that they use. They also, I truly believe they try to protect the legislators that they like, and those of us they don't like, who stir the pot, we're the ones that are really down on the ground fighting for less regulation, less control, and no masks on our kids in school. That is the most ridiculous thing. So anyway, I'll let Ron talk more about the grocery tax repeal.
I'll tell you a little story about an experience with a bill that is important to you, I think. Grocery tax repeal, and I already mentioned $300 million of immediate tax relief. It doesn't even affect the income tax credit that's out there, so it's $300 million. You would go to the store, you'd buy your groceries, and there would be no sales tax added onto it. We have 6 neighboring states. Utah has taxes of 3% on food. The other 5 states, no taxes on food whatsoever. Oregon has no tax on food. Idaho, we're taxing food. Go look at Ontario, Oregon. Tons of Idahoans go across the border, shop at Costco or wherever because automatically 6% lower over there because there's no tax on food. Our border communities get killed by it. Well, anyway, back to the story of grocery tax repeal. So I have this great grocery tax repeal bill, easily affordable if you use it that way. There's a $1.9 billion surplus in Idaho, $300 million easily accommodated by that surplus. And so to me, it's a no-brainer. I take it to the committee chair, and he says, oh, no, we're going to do an income tax cut, which, by the way, you probably already heard is passed and been signed, and we're not going to do anything else. Just dug in. I said, well, can we talk about it? And I tell you, he's like, no, he doesn't like the policy. We're not going to do anything else. Dug in. So what am I supposed to do as a legislator? Did you know that all tax bills have to start in the House Revenue and Taxation Committee by rule? And so that's the only place to go. So my only alternative, because we have one person there exercising veto power that the rules don't give them. You know, committee chairs are not supposed to hold bills. It's not in the rules, but tradition has allowed it. So because this one person is exercising, I say unrighteously, their veto power, the only recourse is to submit it as a personal bill, which I did. It's House Bill 448. You can go look it up. It would put us on par with 5 of our neighboring states, 0 taxes on food. There's only 7 states that fully tax food. Idaho has the 3rd highest tax on food of all the states. There's this handout out on the table about grocery tax repeal and how it compares to other states. So it's out there on the table. Pick one up on your way out. But to put us on par with most of the reasonable states out there, I submitted as a personal bill. Well, after 5 days, if a bill's been in committee, which this one has, in Ways and Means Committee, the rules say that I can call it up onto the House floor, which I did on Tuesday. Called it up to the House floor. The committee chair immediately asked for a motion to keep it in committee. And unfortunately, we did not have enough strong legislators who said, I want to vote for what is right for the people rather than what is right for the process, or what they think is right for the process. So I think it was something like a 41 to 26 vote. It was held in committee. Well, does that end the story? I hope not. Because on Thursday, House Bill 509 came to the floor. It was the small breadcrumbs $20 tax credit that they're offering you. And so another option is to amend an existing bill and make it into a grocery tax repeal, or just add grocery tax repeal onto it. So we made the move to do that. And we had a lot of support for it, but still not a majority, because then they get all wigged out about the process, saying, hey, you're messing with somebody else's bill. Well, my bill has been messed with, and by the way, it's not somebody else's bill. Once it's on the floor, it's the body's bill. So anybody can do anything with any bill they want. And did not have enough support. Should that be the end of the story? No, we're going to keep pushing. We'll look for other opportunities to amend. Oh, by the way, somebody moved a tax bill to amending orders just for some reason to change the syntax on it. So I submitted an amendment to make it the grocery tax repeal. So if that comes up for amendment, we get to vote on it there too. I'm trying every single avenue there is. And I won't stop. We'll just keep trying and trying. But here's the good news. The message is changing. Journalists, believe it or not, are saying they can't understand why the legislature is stopping grocery tax repeal. Even the Democrats are in support of this thing.
That's true.
Yeah, I know. And so because of that, they have the media on their side. But we have the people on our side. It's like just a couple years ago, 74% of Idahoans thought we should repeal the grocery tax, and I think we should do it too. So the messaging is getting out there, and you can see leadership cracking a little bit on this. They're having a hard time defending their breadcrumbs tax cut. So keep the pressure on. Keep the pressure on. Keep emailing your leaders, the leaders in the House, leaders in the Senate, your legislators. Fill up their email boxes, make phone calls, because it is having an effect. Seeing legislators who are fighting for this and continuing to do it, and then having the people back that up, that's how change happens, and so we'll keep working at it.
So another interesting thing with this grocery tax repeal is in 2017, it actually passed the House and the Senate, was vetoed by Governor Otter, but he vetoed it a day later, like technicality or whatever, but anyway, he vetoed it after his the days that he could do that, and so it went to the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court actually said, yeah, he did it late, but they let him have the veto count, so we didn't get grocery tax repeal. This chairman of this committee actually voted for grocery tax repeal in 2017, and then I guess he said he made a mistake or something. but that's what happens when you're in too long.
He signed on to the lawsuit too.
Yeah, he signed on to the lawsuit too. The other thing is that was interesting to me is when Representative Nate was up making the case, the people around me start getting these phone calls. They have we all have a phone on our desk, on the House floor, and so I cannot tell you exactly who was calling, but this is what is done is somebody calls and says you need to vote this way, or at least.
It was leadership telling committee chairs that they had to. It was leadership in quotes, calling their committee chairs and vice chairs saying they had to vote with the leadership on this procedural move because they need to protect the sanctity of committee chairmanships or something like that. But that's what
leadership. Who do you mean?
When I say leadership, I mean Scott Becky, Mike Moyle, Megan Blanksman, and Jason Monks. Those are the four leaders of the House Majority Caucus. And so leaders, Scott Becky is the Speaker of the House. Mike Moyle is the Majority Leader of the House. Jason Monks is the Assistant Majority Leader of the House. And Megan Blanksma is the Majority Caucus Leader. Those four are considered leadership. And some of those leadership were calling committee chairs and vice chairs, reminding them this is a procedural vote. And without saying it directly, they are implying that their committee chairmanship or vice chairmanship relies on them supporting leadership on procedural votes. That's what they say. I don't know. You were next, and then we'll go to Todd. Yeah.
So I don't know if there's two sets of books in our state like there is in the federal government, because we know we have over $30 trillion national debt. But there's another set of books that are out there that they don't talk about that shows we have far more national debt than that. I was at a meeting the other day and the speaker said we had an $8 billion surplus. 8. And you're saying almost 2. And which is correct? Is there actually another set of books, or is it only 1.9? There's no other money in a slush fund sitting there waiting as a surplus?
I think they might be counting unspent ARPA dollars, unspent CARES Act dollars, or unspent Investment Infrastructure and Jobs Act dollars. And so if they're counting that, that's federal money sitting there, and it could easily add up to $8 billion. I'm not going to lie. There was like $11 billion of it last year, so I'm not surprised if that is there. I am hesitant to spend up that ARPA money because it is federal dollars. It does make us dependent on the federal government. We get into financial trouble not in the bad years, but in the good years where we overcommit ourselves to things that we can't sustain in the bad years. And so I'm hesitant to do that, and also because all those federal dollars come with federal strings. Exactly. The rules that come with them are not. And when I first took office back in 2015, if you looked at all the government spending in Idaho, the federal government spending that came in for schools and came in for Medicare and Medicaid comprised about 35% of all the spending in Idaho. Right now, it has risen to about 47%. And if you count ARPA and COVID, it's probably even above that. Idaho is quickly becoming a subsidiary of the federal government. And that's how we lose our sovereignty. By taking the money and all the rules that come with it, we lose the opportunity to make decisions for ourselves. If we want to get rid of Common Core, you know what the first excuse given is? Well, then we'll lose our federal dollars. Well, that tells you we've lost our sovereignty, doesn't it? Yeah, I say send it back. You know what? There is a plan. There is a way to do it. Wean ourselves off the federal dollars and buy back our education sovereignty. We can do that. Elections matter. May 17th is hugely important. We need, when I got there, there were 2 or 3 Liberty legislators, I could call them. Now we have about 15 solid ones, and on key issues, we can raise that up into the 20s. We got 27 votes to break the rules of procedure to get grocery tax repeal back up there. And I don't mean break the rules in the sense, break the traditions of procedure to get it back up there. And so the tide is turning. We have a lot of good candidates running. Vote for those who are going to work for the people and not for the system. Thanks.
And please check their records. Look and see how we vote. If you have questions on things, Idaho Freedom Foundation does a great, what they do, and they get trashed a lot, but what they actually do is they look at the bills, and there's metrics that they use, like does it increase freedom or take freedom, or is it more control? All these metrics that they use, and they rate the bill on that. There's a minus or a plus. Sometimes it's a -3. My mask mandate prohibition bill is actually a +4, so that's pretty cool. But they rate those, and then we choose. But I like the analysis because they tell us. They just put analysis. It does this and it does this and it does this. When we have hundreds and hundreds of bills that we're trying to get through, it is very helpful to have people that are analyzing and at least bringing out concerns that we may have. So, I mean, we can read the bills and we attempt to do that. We also talk to people in the committees. I serve in state affairs where we get a fair amount of really interesting bills, things on our election integrity, for example, we've been talking about lately. And so we talk to each other in our various committees to see what testimony was brought out, what debate, what concerns there are. So we do talk about those things, but the Idaho Freedom Foundation rates people, or rates the bills, and then our score is up there for you to see. And you can actually go to those specific bills and see what they voted on, what we voted on, what we voted against. So it's a really good way to at least start the conversation with your representative or your senator. Ask them why they voted for something or against something. And you don't even have to mention their score, actually. You can just go down those bills or those that they voted or didn't vote.
Yeah, my question is with the governor's state of emergency declaration. As I read, the Constitution says he can do that for 30 days with a 30-day renewal, and he has renewed it every 30 days for 2 years. But I also read where the legislature can terminate that state of emergency declaration. The second question is related. I sense your frustration with the process. You say the people can help, but what is the most effective means for us helping? Is it emails? Is it snail mail? Is it phone calls? Because so often it seems like we write emails, it disappears into a black hole and nothing gets done.
That's a good question. I'll start with the emergency orders. You're exactly right. The governor, every 30 days, has extended this. And I think in violation of the Constitution, and it's very clear. And for some reason, the Attorney General has given this liberal interpretation that every 30 days he can do it. That's not what it says. He can declare an emergency, and after 30 days, renew that declaration. It doesn't say anything else. So if you look at it, literally by the words, it's 30 days plus another 30 days, 60 days. But since March of 2020, he's extended it every month, and the Attorney General has given him the advice that that's okay. I think if there was a lawsuit on that, I think that it would prevail. I also think the legislature can do something about it, and we have. You know, we are We've drafted legislation, we've worked on ending the emergency orders. But again, sometimes leadership doesn't work for the people. Sometimes they work for leadership and work for the governor. And so that process is difficult to get a leader of a House or a Senate to say that the governor, to overrule the governor, because they rely on the governor too.
Is it
Back
not required to have proof that it exists?
The governor can declare an emergency based on whatever the governor decides, is my understanding of the law. As far as being effective, I think emails are important, because even if you feel like it disappears into a black hole, sometimes they do. Delete buttons are easy to hit, but they're seeing the numbers. And so when I'm a legislator and I know there's a bill coming up in committee and I see 100 emails in my box talking about House Bill 494, whatever it is, that tells me that people are really fired up about this. I better read it. I better understand where the people are on it. So emails matter, and the quantity of emails matter a lot. But the most effective way, I think, is showing up at the Capitol. Unfortunately, the Capitol is in the middle of Boise, in the middle of Ada County. It's three and a half hours away from us. But you know, if it's in liberal Ada County and liberal Boise, you know who's showing up at the Capitol? We're getting a different kind of voice at the Capitol than what our constituents have. That's why it's important for us to come home each week. And when you can, if you can show up at the Capitol, if there's an issue that's important to you, if school choice or some grocery tax repeal or something like that is important to you, if you can show up at the Capitol and show your support, that's helpful too. But I don't discount emails, I don't discount phone calls. The legislators need to hear, and I have seen legislators move based on what kind of feedback they're getting from their constituents. You want to add?
Yeah, real quick, two-part question. One, I hope you are a junkyard dog on this vaccine mandate. Don't give it up, because there's a number of us that aren't quitting on that. So I hope you continue with that. One thing I'd like to say too, we pay taxes in District 93, and it gets to a point where I feel like residents start subsidizing non-residents moving in. And my example is with school bonds. And what happens is, we're not against education, okay, but more schools get on the bond and supplemental levies, and we continue to see our tax rate continue to go up, our property taxes, based off schools, and it's directly related to this continuing growth that we have coming out of our state into the state of Idaho. There's other states that do this. I know it's been to the Capitol, and it's not ever been, I think, on the House for a vote. I may be mistaken on that, but it's impact fees. So we have subcontractors or contractors, big contractors come in, building 400 or 500 house additions, okay, big, huge apartments and businesses, okay, and there is no fee to them, okay, to end up collecting money to help in regards to schools. So us that live in Idaho for decades have to end up subsidizing this movement coming in. And so what I'd like to ask is about impact fees, and my wife has a second follow-up question.
Speaking of, last time we were in Boise, we noticed the little tent city that had placed itself on the backyard, and I think that's gone now. Is that correct?
No, it's still there.
It's still there.
They just moved it over on the other side of the grass.
So I'm curious as to what that's about, and then also my other question is about Convention of States. Idaho has not yet joined Convention of States.
We don't want it.
So I get a lot of emails on, I'll do that last one first, the Convention of States. So one of the challenges, I usually have this email that I send to everybody that asks me about it, because are we following the Constitution now?
No.
So how would that change if we met as a group, as whoever they choose? And that's another thing, is who gets chosen to go to that Convention of States. We've had mock conventions before, and they sent pretty progressive people to those mock conventions that I wouldn't trust to hold the line on just doing certain things. We have the way now to limit our budget, but our national leaders are not willing to do that. We could have what's balanced budget amendment, we could have that, but they'll just spend more. So the most important thing is to have representatives, congressmen, and in the state, those of us representative senators, that maybe we will limit ourselves. But you're the ones that term limit us. Joanne Wood was in the House of Representatives for like 32 years. She stayed there as a woman of integrity. Not very many people do, but she had a very good voice, and she had so much knowledge that she was really an asset there. So there are here and there people that are it'd be great to have them stay there for a while. I'm not term limiting myself because I know that my people will. It's a battle for me every time to get back in. I've served, this is my second term, but I had a little break because I didn't get reelected there in the middle. But so I think that's the real term limits, is you, the people, deciding if you want to put us back in, and that's why you need to watch our records and watch what we do. So as far as the Convention of States, I cannot support it. Also, with the bonds, I was going to say we just had a bill passed out of our State Affairs Committee from Heather Scott, Representative Heather Scott, and it will limit bond elections to every 11 months if we can get it through. If you cannot do the same type of, because I know like District 93, and it seems like down here they don't get one passed, then they pair something off, they change it a little bit, and they run it right back through, and it's voter weariness. Then it ends up getting through, and so we've gotten that onto the House floor, so that will be up for a vote. I don't know if it'll get into the Senate to a committee. That's why we have got to have stronger, liberty-minded people that are elected into the House and into the Senate. So, and please get your neighbors and your friends involved as well. We've got to have a lot of more numbers that help us. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I just answer those last?
I just want to comment for you two. You are high on the list.
Yes, you
of
are.
Idaho freedom, and thank you so much.
Thank you
for your votes that you do.
Yes.
We're proud of both of you.
Yes.
Now I have three things to answer to. First of all, scoring high on a Freedom Index or American Conservative Union Index or a Club for Growth Index is not hard if you vote on principle. But when you're voting on the wins of the day or whatever you think this interest needs or whatever, then you have trouble. So principle matters. On the impacts fees, absolutely. The impacts that they're having on a community, the added infrastructure needed, added roads, added sewer, added water, all of that needs to be paid for by the developer, and it will be subsumed into the house price so that those new move-ins are paying for the increased expenses that they're adding to the community. It's only fair. And so I have no problem with impact fees reflecting what their impacts are on the community. Right there with you. Convention of the States, I think that everyone in this room agrees there needs to be a paradigm shift in their elected officials. I think the federal government feels lost to all of us. Idaho has 2 congressmen and 2 senators. Those 4 are 4 voices out of 535. Are we going to save our great country here? Are we going to save the great state of Idaho? It's going to be up to the states to stand up, and not and not the federal government or our federal officials. I think we all agree that we need to keep the budget under control. We need to have good elected officials. The method of how we get there may differ. Let's not let it divide us here. I think we all agree on the main issue, that Idaho's at risk, our country's at risk, and our finances are out of control. So whether you think Convention of the States is the way to go, or electing better people, or something else, great. We're all on the same page. The methodology might be a little different, so let's leave here as friends, happy warriors for the same cause, even though we have different ideas of how to get there. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm right there with you. Thank you.
Does the grocery tax repeal include doing away with tax at restaurants? And does it also include doing away with things that are non-grocery when you go to Brolam's or some grocery store? And who do we need to contact that's blocking this legislation to get the grocery tax repealed?
Great. The grocery tax repeal applies to only food purchases of what's called non-prepared food. So it's not your fast foods, it's not your restaurant meals, and it's not even the paper products. It's the SNAP definition, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program that the federal government has. It uses the same definition. So it's easy to administrate because grocery stores already do this. Right. They don't tax those foods. Those are the benefit cards that low-income families use. So they already separate those out from the rest of the groceries anyway. So it's easy to administrate. And who do you need to get in contact with? I'll give you 4 names. Is that too many?
No.
Okay.
More, yeah.
House Speaker Scott Bedke needs to hear from you. Senate Pro Tem Chuck Winder needs to hear from you. House Committee Chair Steve Harris. He alone has assumed the responsibility of making this decision for all of Idaho. And he deserves the responsibility for it too. Accountability that goes with that responsibility. Excuse me, I misspoke. He deserves accountability. And finally, the chair of the Senate Local Government and Taxation Committee, which is Senator Jim Rice. And so those are 4 leaders who could go a long way to making this happen. Then you have 101 other legislators who, if they had the will, could vote on the procedural motions to get this to a full vote. Did you know that the governor of Idaho ran on the idea that grocery tax repeal was good for Idaho? He was asked this January whether he would still support grocery tax repeal. He said if it got to his desk, he would sign it. We've had supermajorities in the House and Senate in the past vote for it. The only ones getting in the way are a few leaders in the House and maybe 1 or 2 leaders in the Senate. We can do this. We can overcome. Yeah.
Just kind of a follow-up on what you said. He was talking about how solvent Idaho is and how the economy is booming and people are moving here. He talks about how far in debt the federal government is, but yet he's continuing to allow millions or billions of dollars to come into the state for the continued emergency. So he's really saying contradictory things about
I agree. You handle that one, yeah.
I will tell you why I personally think that the grocery tax repeal is being held, and it's because Representative Nate has been the bulldog trying to push it through. And they do not want, the leadership, the establishment, whoever you want to call it, they do not want him to have a victory, because that would show how hard he's fighting for the rest of us. And they do not want him to have that victory because they want who they've chosen and who they will support to get into office this next time. So that's my personal thing. And I think you were kind of talking about the Arpa Funds and such. In the committee that I serve in, Human Resources and Commerce, and we've had a couple bills that will be using ARPA money for various things. Child care infrastructure, for example, housing development, and gosh, I can't remember the other one, but these are all ARPA funds. And I voted no on Senate Bill 1193, as did Representative Nate and some others, but not enough. So ARPA has gone through, and they were saying $18 billion that our state has gotten in ARPA, CARES, what have you, in the past couple of years, or slated to get. And that's our small little state. And just think of the strings attached for our small little state. And it's just wrong. So I believe everything, I can't imagine something I would vote for that has ARPA funds involved, but that's where I am on that.
Super quick, if everyone wants to know how to find their legislator, if you just go to Google, who is my legislator Idaho, then you can type in your address.
Yep. For the record, Google whoismylegislator.com.
Yeah, well, no, you just have to just do a search, who is my legislator Idaho? And then it takes you right to that page where you can put in your street address. And then you can also go to the menu and you can find all the legislators. You can find the leadership of the House and everything, so you don't have to guess at what the addresses are. It takes 5 minutes, so it would be very helpful.
Okay, I'm gonna, actually, I'm trying to catch up. We're gonna have 2 more questions. Things got a little bit carried away, and then you would be the third. Okay, because I'm trying to catch up. But I want to give an opportunity. We started out this with, giving Wendy a chance to say some things and all that, and she was able to tell some of her accomplishments and whatnot. But it got a little bit out of hand, and these two haven't had that opportunity to actually do that. And so I want to make sure that they have that opportunity. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 more questions because they've been, and then we'll let them speak, and then we'll come back to Linda. She's the third one, okay? Oh, or Brian and Linda, okay? Thank you.
I'm not sure how to word this, but we have all these different legislatures in all different districts. What is the best way for us to be influential to some of these legislators who are out of our district? We can't vote for them, but to get their attention and get them to think a little bit more like we do, or to realize that the population, that we want the legislation to free up our state and whatnot. What's the best way to contact them and to get their attention?
Yeah, emails and phone calls are the best way. But I'll tell you what, you touched on something that reminded me that trying to influence legislators outside your district is harder because you have to first of all find them and then get their contact information and do it. And then they may or may not listen to you because whatever. But in your district, if you contact your legislator and tell them where you live and that you're in their district and that you vote, you have their attention. You do. And so contact your legislators especially, because if they know that there's a growing discontent in their district about what they're doing, then they'll change. So you're right. It is, you're less influential outside your district, but you're super influential inside.
I'm not worried about my district. It's these outside ones.
There you go.
Well, and they can influence each other, depending on who it is. They talk among themselves. We all talk among ourselves, and so there may be opportunities to influence. But full disclosure, oftentimes if I'm slammed with 100 to 200 emails, if they say they're from Boise or wherever, I just delete them because I don't have the time. We're our own staff too, so I don't have the time to do that. So I don't know if it's a good thing or not a good thing to tell where you're from sometimes, but I just want to focus on my constituents. So I think most of us are the same on that.
Yeah, can I make a comment on that? And this is my perception. Every legislator has an impact on you. It doesn't matter whether it's in your district or not, okay? Because what Ron does will affect the state. What Carrie does affects the state. What Wendy does affects the state, okay? So they matter. And so what I would say that we need to do is, even though I can't vote for them, I may know somebody that lives in their district. I may have a couple of nickels that I can support them with, okay? I also may be able to, there may be somebody running in that district that is more supportive of your ideals than the current candidate. There's nothing that I believe that restricts me from supporting either one of these two, even though I can't vote for them. And so that's the way I look at this, is that, we're all in this together, and we have to get this team built to be able to get us back to where we need to be. And I'll just say that we need to support people like this, even though we can't vote for them. And by doing that, so that's what my answer to you would be is vote is one thing, vote is critical for in your district and helping the person in your district, but we also have to try to help those that are outside of our district, because it's the collective that matters. It really is the collective that matters. So that's my 2 cents. So that answer your question?
It helps.
Okay. One more for Cherie. She'll get mad at me.
Okay, so I just had a question about, it was going to be about the food tax, but we talked about that a lot. But another one I had was that the federal government has put into place a grant that I guess each state can apply for to put electrical powering stations, I guess, every 50 feet on major highways, and that the states can apply for grant funds to do that. What is your opinion on that? How do you think Idaho will go with putting these, I think they're absurd, car charging ideas throughout the interstate and having people charge that and be electrical fueled instead of oil, gas like they are now?
I'll be brief on this one. America has a tremendous transportation system. I never have a problem finding a gas station, but it wasn't because the federal government set up a federal gas station program years ago. I don't think we need that for charging stations either.
I don't have a comment on that, but do you want me to just go ahead with what's important to me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I have said from the time that I was elected in 2016, I am not there to make a bunch of new laws. I would like to even have this little rule that for every law we pass, we repeal 2. It just amazes me, and as if you look at the list, we have, I don't know, 300 or 400 again this year, and it's not that we make totally new laws, it's just that we add something or take something off. But still, there is a dang lot of legislation that we're doing. So for me to actually sponsor a bill, it has to be something that I feel in my very heart and soul that I can sponsor. I'll help co-sponsor things, and I feel strongly about Second Amendment and things like that, and I would sponsor something like that. But this year, as well as last year, I have sponsored a mask mandate prohibition bill. I just want to read you part of a letter from this little 3rd grader in Boise. Wearing a mask makes me feel dizzy, sick, out of breath, distant, lonely, hard to concentrate. Like I have barely been able to see faces of my friends, classmates, teacher, and schoolmates. Like it does not help me or protect me from COVID-19, and the flu is more dangerous than COVID-19 to kids. And last year I had the flu and missed 2 weeks of school, and the school did not care. My classmates did not have to stay home. So I just want to kind of, I don't know if you can see it that much, but at the end she says, I really miss the way school used to be. Just broke my heart. The governor of New Jersey is ending the mask mandate. There's a whole bunch of states, and DeSantis was one of the leaders on doing that as well. And Idaho can't get rid of our mask mandates. So we're trying for the 3rd time, and I think it may pass this time around because all these Democrat states, how can we justify keeping these mask mandates? And people say, well, we really don't have to wear masks that much in Idaho anymore. How fast could the governor reinstate stage 2 or stage 1? Whatever he seems to be able to unilaterally do. And so for me, I believe that the vax mandate prohibition is vital as well, and even more important because it really does, it goes into your body. But because we didn't push back hard enough on the mask mandate, we got the next step, and then the next step will most likely be the passports. They're talking about ESG, which I can't remember, is it environmental, social, government? That is going to be influencing our banks and stuff. I don't know a ton about that, but okay, I know, and it's just that because we didn't push back on the mask mandates, it's just rolling forward into all other aspects of our lives. And so I'm still going to push for this, and I feel really good about it. We had to change the bill numbers, so right now it's House Bill 514, but we just pulled the penalty part out for now. We're going to see how it works without a penalty, as we think that we can get it through the Senate possibly without that. If we have to put a penalty in there, we will come back and do that. But the one that was in it, we couldn't really enforce. So that's the explanation on that. But that's what I feel so strongly about, is that we have to push back when we first see something occurring, because it just creeps or rolls forward, whichever way you want to look at it. But so that's one thing that's really important to me, and it just encompasses all the things that we're dealing with not following the Constitution. That's what we're not doing. So, and so that's what Ron and I and a bigger and bigger handful of patriots is doing. So just stay with us, increase the ranks, because we need all of you and many, many more. Thank you.
I'll give some. My concluding remarks are this: it's that I feel a new energy towards liberty and patriotism this time around than in other years, and I think it's because when our freedoms are starting to be eroded is when we start to get fired up again. Hopefully it doesn't get so bad before we can do something about it. But I feel there's more and more people interested in politics, the legislature, interested in supporting liberty candidates and restoring their freedoms. Heck, you have truckers from all over North America driving to Ottawa, right? So we need to have that similar kind of attitude in Idaho. We need to have people come out of the woodwork and support their candidates. Let their legislators know, and that we're not going to take it anymore. When I got elected, one of the driving factors was this: is the liberty candidates, when you talk to them, they don't necessarily want this job, but they feel like they're doing it because they have to, because for some reason they're in a position that they can do something about it. And it's so refreshing to hear that kind of an elected official versus the other kind who's saying, what can I do to get elected next year? No, it's us. We're like, if I'm elected, I'm here to do the work, but if I'm not, I will do what you want me to do, is kind of the attitude. One of the quotes that drove me in my first election was from Davy Crockett. He was asked to support the sitting governor, and he would be assured re-election if he supported the governor. Davy Crockett, his response, part of it was, I would rather be beaten and be a man than to be elected and be a little puppy dog. And that's the way I feel. I am just going to do the work of the people and do whatever I need to do to support the people, whatever happens. If you ever get an email from me, at the bottom of it is a quote from George Washington that says, happiness and moral duty are inseparably connected. I'm a happy warrior here. And I know we feel frustrated that it feels like our freedom is crashing down around us, but we are happy warriors. We're doing the work of agency and freedom here. We're on the side of right and justice here. So let's be happy in our work. Let's be happy warriors. The cause is just, and you're doing good things. Thank you.
Okay, I do all at least a couple of questions. I promise that. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. That's it. 4 more, and then because again, they're giving up their afternoon and everything, and they're only here for a short time, so they need to be with the family. So Linda, and then Brian, and then.
Thank you. I had to live in New York for 10 years. I saw what happened under Agenda 21, and now it's Agenda 2030. The massive building of apartment buildings, so taking over whole little villages and making them comply, and all of they got this financial incentive to get in, and then you can't hardly get out of the program. Are we involved in that in Idaho? And what are we doing to stop the World Economic Forum's ESG scores? Thank you.
Go ahead. A lot of what we do is playing defense, stopping bad stuff from coming in. And the hard part about it is it comes in under such good pretenses. And so the research is important. Like she said, we don't have time to research every issue that comes up. So when you're aware of something that's coming to the legislature based on World Economic Forum or Agenda 21 or whatever, Southern Poverty Loss, whatever group or organizations behind it, you gotta let us know. A lot of our job is stopping this bad stuff. Agenda 21 has seemed to fade in the years that I've been there. I haven't heard those. Yeah, now it's 2030, and but I'll tell you what, a bill will come through the Idaho House, and it won't say Agenda 30 on it. It'll say, hey, here's this for maybe child care, infrastructure, or whatever, and so we need to be aware that that is part of the agenda, and so we need to stop it in its tracks. Last year we did that. There was a bill coming through. It was under the pretenses of providing a $6 million grant for preschools from the federal government for 3 years, so $18 million. Well, looking into it a little bit, we saw it was tied to the National Youth Education Association, whatever group, and that group was tied to social justice programming, critical race theory. In their literature, they actually talked about white fragility and other things. And so we're like, we shouldn't take the $6 million and subject our kids to a preschool program that starts the indoctrination process. And we were able to stop it. And so we just need constant vigilance, both from ourselves and from those in our districts. It helps.
I was just wondering, with all the bills that get put in drawers, is there a kind of a style of bill that Liberty candidates have been able to get support to get them passed or get them to the Senate floor? Or has it just been this kind of, I don't know how to say, iron current?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not necessarily the content of the bill. Sometimes it's who's doing it. And what Representative Hanks said is right. The Speaker of the House told an associate of mine, and I'm paraphrasing his quote, "We can't let conservatives have victories because they'll use it to beat incumbents in the primary elections." And does that sound like somebody working for the people or somebody working for the next election? So it's not necessarily the nature of the bill, but we try every avenue, and it sounds like there's a lot of frustration up here, and there is. It is genuine frustration, but there's sometimes where I have a good bill idea, and I will just take it to one of the chosen ones. And if it's a subject matter that's not so, if it's a subject matter that makes sense, and then I can find other legislators to carry it, which I have done. And so I'm not interested in whose name is on the bill. I'm interested in getting good legislation done. And sometimes that means working behind the scenes and supporting another legislator in the process on a bill that I came up with and getting it done. And we do that. Can't tell you what bills they are because don't want to get others in trouble and shut down that process either. Yeah.
So kind of to this gentleman's point that was on the front row asking about if they're not in your district and you want to influence them, could you speak a little bit to everyone about the importance of taking a smaller role, like being a PCO, because we have a good, strong, conservative GOP in our county here, and I think that might be one way we can help.
Oh, that's a great point. Yes, because several of our central committees are more establishment types, and it just seems like you can see a wave coming through, and they're all on the same wavelength about what they're going to support and what they're not. And For example, when we went to the Central Committee, well, the state meetings over in Boise in January, right before session started. So I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Jones, but he was, what, a Supreme Court justice, and I don't know if he was something else in Idaho, but several years ago. And he was supposed, something else. He was supposedly a Republican. Well, he has come out and blasted so many things that we are doing as a Republican Party, and that is, we have a great platform. I don't know if any of you've seen the GOP platform, but it's really good. It works well with our Constitution. So he has just blasted Republicans, leadership, all kinds of things. I can't think exactly of what he's talked about lately, but he seems to have an ear of the liberal papers like the Post Register and others, that he has articles in there very often. So anyway, we had there was a resolution to basically kick him out of the Hall of Fame, the Republican Hall of Fame. There were enough establishment people that we couldn't even get that done in our state meeting. And so it just, to me, it shows that we're not willing to stand up to the corruption that's in our party. So if we had enough PCOs, precinct committee officers, so what you do is you elect a state committee woman, a state committee man, a youth chairman, and then your central committee chairman. They all go to the state meeting and they have a vote on it. Well, some have a vote on. Okay, they have a vote in committee if they're on committee, and then after that it goes on to the full floor. And so this is what we couldn't get something like this passed that would get him out of that Hall of Fame, because he is not espousing our Republican values. So if we have more people in our central committee that will espouse our Republican values and our liberty values, really, that's something that you can do, is check into that. So good question.
Last question.
I really don't have a question, but I wanted to make a statement, and that was, we were at a convention here a few months ago, and Speaker Betke was the guest speaker, and I asked him about the grocery tax repeal and why he's not supporting that. And the answer he gave to me and about 200 other people in this audience was that, well, we don't want to give that benefit to all the tourists coming in through our towns. Yep, they would be able, and I'm thinking, how often do these people normally buy groceries? But two, why do you want to screw all our tourists? That's, and we're talking about, this was a convention up in Ashton, where that is primarily their main industry. And everybody was just, seemed to be hunky-dory with that answer, and I thought, we're in big trouble.
You're right. That answer is a red herring, and it's deflecting from the important point here that we're talking about $300 million of tax relief for Idahoans. And so you're worried about a few tourists. You know who's not worried about tourists? Oregon, Washington, Montana, Wyoming, Nevada. They don't tax their tourists for their food purchases. Why should Idaho feel like we need to? By the way, if we don't tax the tourists, they have more money in their pockets to spend on Idaho businesses, Idaho restaurants, Idaho lodging, all that stuff. Why does government think it should get the tourist dollars? It should be going to the tourist business, to the Idaho businesses.
All right, thank you very much. Everybody, let's give them a big hand. I mean, it's full process. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody. What's next? Ron, Carrie, I really appreciate it.